If I can refer to the deaths that have unfortunately occurred along the coast. Now, these deaths have occurred sometimes in the presence of family. Now, we don't know what really happened in those circumstances, but we do know the sea conditions weren't dreadful or terrible in terms of size. But if the people had a survival mentality, in other words, they were able to fight this, I don't want to panic, I just want to float and survive, there might have been enough time for help to arrive. So this nonsense of swim parallel is giving people a false sense of something they think they can do to escape a rip.
But now, you're saying that the message has clearly got through. People are coming up to you on the beach and asking you about the swim parallel advice?
But they are saying that is swim parallel advice the correct advice? And we're saying clearly it isn't the correct advice. There's a longshore drift on just about every beach. And if they choose to go left and the longshore drift is going against them, well, they're going to exhaust themselves. I've already said about 3 times already that rips behave in particular ways which are not running perpendicular to the beach. Now, ripses can be talked about in terms of currents that behave and go in different ways. Now, I am getting very frustrated. You can probably tell by the tone of my voice. We're getting very frustrated in wanting to know why Surf Lifesaving have done this. Peter refers to expert opinion and research. He hasn't rolled out who these people are.
Okay, well, let's ask Peter that now. Peter, how did you get this so wrong? If John is right, and I think Rob has some concerns with your message too, this is a potential disaster.
Yeah,
Surf Lifesaving's got out the wrong message, a deadly message.
Yeah, it sounds quite alarmist, and John, probably not being the first time he's ever put out an alarmist indication about our message, is probably a little incorrect in this age and probably a little bit over the top in relation to his reaction. It's an important thing to realise that this is not a new message. This message of swim parallel to the beach has been around for 100 years. I picked up a training manual the other day and someone said to me, this is the 32nd edition of this manual, and we've had 100 years of development in it. The swim parallel to the beach has always been in that, and it's something we teach lifesavers and lifeguards around the world on a daily basis. So it's certainly not a new message. The holistic approach, of course, is to make sure that we have a number of messages within the RIP education within Australia, and when marketing people tell me that you've got to have a refined message, it's got to be staged, if you want to change your behaviour, it's got to be simple, really drives me crazy as well. I'm like Rob, I'm very passionate about getting all the information about RIPs out to every Australian.
So you've distilled that down, though, to this one message. Do you accept that perhaps you chose the wrong one?
Not at this stage. The evidence that we're getting from the Australian Water Safety Council, International Lifesaving Federation, a whole lot of the peak bodies in water safety pretty much support and have good literature research on the message.
Rob, what do you think? Have they chosen the wrong single message?
Oh, put me on the spot. I think...
If I could jump in there, Fran.
No, hang on, just let me let Rob have a go, and then over to you, John.
My preference is always to reduce panic, and my preference is stay afloat. Having said that, Surf Lifesaving looked at the statistics and saw that all the drownings were occurring on unpatrolled beaches, and they thought, well, we've got 2 options. We can tell people to go with the flow, or we can tell them to get out of the rip, and they chose to say get out of the rip. But it always comes back down to the fact that I really think that neither of those options is foolproof. The only foolproof way is to stop people from getting in rips, and that needs to focus on proper education.
Okay, John?
Well, Peter said that, for 100 years this has been the message, but the thing is, 100 years ago we didn't have the understanding that we do now have about rips. I mean, the old mushroom rip where it runs perpendicular to the beach have been in training manuals, yes, that's right, Peter, for 100 years. But that's not what actually goes on out there. We have surf scientists who, in fact, are saying that swim parallel is the wrong message. One prominent person said that in 80% of cases, if you are in a rip, you'll be returned to still waters and or the waves or the sandbar and be able to make a fine exit from the ocean.
Okay,
well, the thing is, I want Peter to name these experts. He still talks about who they are, but who are they?
Okay, well, look, we have a surf scientist in our studio here. Rob, you're a surf scientist.
Well, there's been some really interesting research done recently in the States, and it's been replicated in England, on beaches in England and France, where they put in these drifters with GPS units, and they found that about 80% of the time, the rips will take the water out just past the breaking waves or just before, but will return the water back in a circle. And that's pretty consistent. And I've done that. I've done a lot of purple dye releases in rips, and I see that quite often. And the implication there is, well, if you just wait 5 or 10 minutes, there's a good chance that the rip will bring you back to the beach. But there's a 20% chance that it won't, in which case you'll be spat out the back.
Okay, so that brings us to the key question. If we're back to the message of swimming parallel to the beach, each of you, which aspects should someone consider? You're caught in the rip. I think people really want to know this. What should you consider when you decide to swim parallel or drift?
Well, if I might just jump in. I don't use the word parallel because I always say swim towards the... If you want to swim out of a rip, aim for the whitewater. Rips are usually snuggled in between areas of breaking waves, and whitewater is good because it means it's possibly shallower, so maybe you can stand up, but whitewater also brings you back. And that gets you out of the problem that, well, yes, a lot of rips do flow at different angles, so aim for the whitewater.
Peter?
Yeah, and I think the broader campaign message, and again, when you unpack the campaign, the RIP campaign currently running in Australia, number one is do not panic. Point number two is do not swim against the rip current. Point number three is if you're confident, swim parallel to the beach, often taking you towards the breaking waves, and that can get you back to the shore. And then, of course, if you feel that you're unable to reach the beach, to raise your hand, call for assistance, and conserve energy. And the last one is always stay calm. So again, the reinforcement message of don't panic. And most of our incidents of drowning, we're seeing that people have got the swimming ability. They slowly wear themselves out, so we're getting them a bit of a course of action to take early on, and then providing the advice if you don't think you can actually help yourself to actually remain calm.